You have the desire, information, and understanding, but are still missing the steps to reach success. Welcome to Fitness and Finance, your guide to maximizing all areas of health and wealth to give you the quality of life you deserve. Brought to you by your host, Eric Smith.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time here, welcome back, or welcome, excuse me. And if you are here with us every single week, I appreciate you so much, and welcome back. This episode is going to be maybe a little controversial, maybe a little polarizing, maybe ruffle a feather or two, but I have no problem ruffling a few feathers. I have known to do that in my life, so I have no problem with that. One of the things that I want to talk about today is this concept of security. What is security? Quick story. So over the weekend, I was basically, we lost our mailbox key, couldn't find it, can't find it. And we had a locksmith come out. Locksmith came out to, try and pick the lock or basically replace the lock. And someone saw him in our neighborhood and they called the police. The police came out and they, were questioning him and they were questioning me because that's where I live. And I had to prove that I live there, even though I don't own the place where I live. And so I was talking to one of the officers and she was asking me, well, because I have an Indiana driver's license. And so she's like, Indiana? That's interesting. I was like, well, I spent some time there. I was in school there. And so she was like, oh, okay. And she asked me what I did. And so I told her what I do. And then she asked me, she was like, oh, okay, do you work for yourself or do you work, are you independent or do you work for a company? Are you employed basically? And I told her that I work for myself. And she kind of looked at me and she said, wow, that's so brave. And I'm just like, I'm the one who's brave while you're the police officer literally putting your life on the line every single day and having to chase down people, arrest people, have to deal with people with knives, guns, all that good stuff. So I guess not necessarily good stuff, but all that stuff. And she told me I was brave because she needed that stability that, she knew every 2 weeks she was going to get her check. So I thought it was kind of interesting because a lot of times people, we're taught that we need to go to school, get our degree, get a good job, have someone pay us. And so it's interesting because that's a security, but it's a pretty false sense of security. Because I've known so many people that got let go from their jobs just because, they couldn't make the numbers. The business had a difficult time. So people just got let go. That's it. You have a week's notice, a month's notice, maybe even less, some cases. Couple of stories on this just made me think of this one, but a friend of my wife's was in her program. She's a doctor and she was in her residency program, and they literally told her like the week before, like that she had to find a new place to work and find a new residency and all of these. And I'm like, okay, the program is shutting down and you literally have to find a place that's going to allow you, that has a spot available for you to work on such short notice. She had to pack up and fly. She was living in Philadelphia at the time, in Philly, and this was a couple months ago. Fly to California and interview for a place, and basically had to last second find a place to live, find a place to work. So we have this sense of security, even in the medical field. So you think whether you work for the government, whether you are a police officer, you're your job is safe. But that's not necessarily the case. You never know what can happen. Yes, we do need police. We do need fighters, but you never know what can happen with departments and government, and funding can be cut any second. So I just thought that was interesting that I'm the brave one, but someone who is dependent on someone else is not the brave one, because I think that's pretty brave. Yes, we need our jobs, it's so important. But I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, my wife works for this company that had to lay off or basically get rid of half of the people that actually help her. Half the staff, people let go. People make good money. They had to figure out what they were going to do at the drop of a hat. So I find it interesting that people are so big on this whole security thing. Like, I have to get a good job, have my benefits. And so most people don't even know what their benefits are. So I find that kind of interesting too, where we have to have our benefits, where we feel like our company is going to take care of us. But if we really think about it, who is the most important thing to the company? Is it the employee? Most likely not, depending on which company you work for. Obviously, they want to take care of their employees, but the company is going to look out for the company to stay afloat, to be in business. They're going to do whatever they can to stay in business, whether it's cut salaries, cut hours so people can work part-time and not full-time, so they don't have to pay for benefits, so to speak. So what is security? That's a great question. I think it's also interesting to kind of note that when we give our lives hours and hours and hours a week to our job, that we don't necessarily get that same thing in return. We don't get that loyalty. In the 80s, companies started to lay people off. They had to sacrifice the people to make the numbers. Simon Sinek talks about this all the time in his different books, whether it's Start With Why, whether it's Leaders Eat Last. But layoffs were really big at that time, and then have become the norm ever since. So to give you a story, when I was about 7 years old, so when I was 7 to about 9, my dad would fly from LA to Denver, and then sometimes hop on another flight from Denver to Colorado Springs every single week, or sometimes he'd drive from Denver to Colorado Springs. He did that every week. So he'd leave Sunday night and then come back Thursday night, sometimes Friday night. Or he'd leave Monday morning and leave and come back Thursday night, or sometimes Friday morning. Sometimes he'd be gone the whole week. He did that for a company for 2 years. Was with that company for many, many years. I think about 10 years or so, something like that. Not sure the exact number, but he worked for that company for a while. And the interesting thing with that story is that after that project was over, 2 years, he did this for 2 years, away from his wife, his son, every single week, did that. He sacrificed dedication to the company. It's going to help, it's going to set me up, it's going to better my career. Right after the project was over, he got laid off. So where's the loyalty in that? Where's the security in that? You work for a company for about a decade. You give 2 years of that time away from your family. You're flying out every week to a whole different state. Then they lay you off right after the project was over, right after the project was completed. So it's interesting to really feel like our companies are going to take care of us. Yes, they should. It's important. But you never know what can happen. When your life is in the hands of another individual, your livelihood, your career, your pay, someone else gets to determine how much money you're going to make. Is that really security? I don't know. And so when I decided, obviously with my wife, she had to agree to this, but when I decided to come out to Vegas and travel back and forth to Vegas, people thought I was crazy. They're like, how are you going to go out to Vegas, be away from your family, travel back and forth? And then I thought about it. I said, well, for one, it's a huge opportunity to do this. My wife agreed to it. So that's more important than anything anyone else would say. I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, if my wife is okay with it, then it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. But I thought about it and I said, okay, let's pull back. Let's be objective. Let's think about things for a second. If my dad could decide to go out and travel every single week for another company, someone else gets to determine what he's going to do, when he's going to go, when he's going to come back, all of that. So if my dad made that decision to do that, my mom was okay with it. They made that decision together. Was away for 2 years. 2 years he did that. And then right after, he got laid off. So if he could do that, I think it's okay for me to do that for my own business. Just saying. That's just the way it is. Doesn't matter. So when we think of security, what is really secure? Do we know what security really is? How do you really define security? Especially if you just leave it in the hands of another individual, is that really secure? Especially when people have no idea how long they're going to work, have no idea when they want to stop working for money, what it's going to take for them in order to stop working for money. What does that even look like? They haven't even given too many thoughts to that, if they've given any thoughts to that. So are they really going to be taken care of? Are they really in a secure place? That's a question that I have. People ask me this question. They're like, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. Well, if you're bringing value, right? And obviously my dad wasn't so valuable to the company where he wasn't sacrificed. That's just, call it like it is. I mean, I love my dad. I admire and respect my dad, but that's just what it boiled down to. If he was very valuable, he wouldn't have been laid off. They would have made a way for him to find him a new job somewhere. That's just the way it is. So we have to be so valuable. And I don't know if people are really being so valuable to the company, to even their business, where doesn't matter what happens in the world, what happens with the company, they will still make things happen. But that's a shift that I actually had to think about and make for myself personally. I had to decide what is my value? What value do I bring to everything that I do? The relationships that I'm in, the business that I'm in as well, to the people that I serve, the people that I help, the people that I sit down with, the people that I educate on what could be potentially in the best interest of themselves. If I'm not only valuable, but conveying that value to people, then that's so important that it doesn't even matter what can happen. I'm still going to succeed, and I'm still going to earn a living, and I'm still going to make things happen. So that's something to consider. How valuable are you? It's not if I'm getting security. It's not what can my company do to take care of me. It's how valuable I can be to that company. So the worst comes to worst case scenario, bad things happen, I'm not going to be sacrificed. And so one thing to share really quickly is something that a friend of mine, Mr. Travis Chappell, who has the Build Your Network podcast, he shared with me when I was having him coach me through this podcast and this whole process. Something that he heard from Steve Martin. Steve Martin's tagline is, be so good that they can't ignore you. So are you so good that people can't ignore what you're doing? Are you working on it? Are you developing those skills? So that's all I wanted to share. So what's really secure? You know, what is security? Do you have that security? Do you feel secure in where you are? If not, then maybe you want to be more valuable. So thank you so much for watching, but listening to the show. I appreciate you taking the time. If anything resonated with you, if this kind of made you curious, tickled your fancy a little bit, maybe you're like, Eric, you have no idea what you're talking about. I've got a good job. I've got a great job. My company's not going anywhere. Maybe. If so, let me know. Reach out to me. Let me know that I'm wrong. I would love to hear your story. Love to hear that you share. And maybe if you agree with me, then cool. Reach out to me too. Let me know how you feel. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know your thoughts. So appreciate you taking the time out of your Friday. Have a good Friday. And another thing is, if you're living for the weekend, then that's something to re-examine your life. If you're living for the weekend away from what you're doing, then maybe you aren't in the right environment. So just thought I'd share that. But reach out, connect with me. I'm on Instagram at Eric Eugene Smith. Also on Facebook, Eric Smith, LinkedIn, /Eric Smith, Twitter at SMITTE 91926. So if you're curious about what that means, hit me up. I'll let you know. And set a time to talk on my calendar through www.fitnessinfinance.com. So appreciate you taking the time and look forward to hearing from you.